Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Michelle Beck. A controversy over gas stoves began with reports last week from federal officials. They said banning them is a possibility in light of a recent study on harmful air pollutants. Then late last week, the head of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission walked back on the earlier reports of that potential ban. That back and forth prompted our Colton Molesky to take a look at how Dane County chefs are looking at the debate of gas versus electric stoves. Hey, Colton.
Michelle, a December study published by MDPI attributes around 12% of asthma in children to emissions from gas stoves. It is one of the studies cited as a Dane County department pushes for more electric and fewer gas stoves. It's a cause they hope Madison area chefs will help champion.
There are significant public health risks associated with cooking with a gas stove.
Officials in Dane County hope the future of cooking happens thanks to a switch instead of a flame.
That burning creates nitrogen dioxide and tiny airborne particulates that we call PM 2.5.
Director of Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, Kathy Kuntz, hopes to see a county-wide move to electric in the coming years. She points to emissions tracing back to gas stoves in people's homes. And she hopes area chefs can help champion the change.
A few chefs in town in particular have been approached about trying to sort of champion induction technology specifically.
Cadre owner and chef Evan Donnells does not have any issues with the concept of going electric, but says the tech is still years away from practical application.
Just a cost of equipment standpoint, induction capable commercial ranges are 3 times as expensive as conventional gas ranges.
Donnells notes gas stoves require far fewer parts, many of which the chefs can replace themselves, as opposed to needing a specialist for inductive stove repairs. The cost difference is so large, he would like to see incentives for chefs.
So I feel like it would be fair for, if they're choosing to have chefs in restaurants champion this cause, I think it would be reasonable to expect incentives for us to do so.
Now, both of the people I spoke with say the idea of widespread electric induction stoves is likely still a few years off, despite the recent buzz about the USPSC's push for fewer gas stoves. Evan Daniels tells me any sort of ban to promote change is unreasonable. In studio, Colton Molesky, NBC 15 News.